Hey there, I'm Connie Foote with Foote Title Group, where we protect your home ownership. Welcome to Coffee with Connie. Thank you so very much for taking the time out of your busy, crazy morning to tune in and to participate when we try to talk to you a couple of times a week about all different kinds of things with respect to real estate, new homes, home ownership, home selling, refinancing. I own a title company and have owned that company for over 30 years and have seen all kinds of things and have had all kinds of questions. And so my goal is, when I get together with you through Coffee with Connie, is to answer those questions, to try to maybe answer some things that you have questions about, or just to bring up a conversation that may be something that's confusing to you. Maybe I don't know all of the answers, and I definitely don't. Not maybe, I definitely don't. But I know enough of the right people to get the right answers if I don't know the answers for you. So if you happen to be on this morning, check in and say, hey, let me know that you're on. Hey, Linda, how are you? Good morning, Robbie. Hey, honey, how are you? My lovely partner who helps me and supports me so much. Thanks for tuning in, baby. I appreciate it. If you guys find what we're talking about interesting, please let me also ask you to share. Hit the share button, because if you're interested, there's probably somebody in your circle of people that are interested as well. So hit that little share button. That would help me ever so much. So this morning I wanted to talk about something that, again, was a question that somebody brought up. Now, a lot of times I will talk about things that we experience or that we see, and I have a schedule that I try to talk about some specific things to try to mix it up a lot so we don't talk about the same stuff all the time. But what seems to happen is a lot of the same topics come up, and not always are the same people participating at the same time. So because of that, again, I wanted to talk about surveys and property lines and things like that, because this is a really common issue, question, concern that happens in home ownership. And so how it is, what you can do about when things happen with regards to the property lines, and how you go about dealing with it, and how your title insurance, or the protection that you get from the company that does your closing, how does that help you and what happens? So these are some of the things we're going to talk about today, because this is a common thread that comes up all the time. So first of all, let me explain to you that it used to be common practice that you had to get a survey when you purchased a new property, because your new lender would not loan you any money without making sure that the property was properly, that the proper property that you were buying was what they thought that they were loaning money against, so that there wasn't anyone else that had any interest in it, and that the size and dimensions and where the property sat, the house sat within the property, was actually what they anticipated loaning against. So lenders used to require that you have a survey when you are doing a closing and when you purchase a new home, when they loan money to you. And then the rules changed, because the companies that insure that ownership interest and insure the lender's interest actually said, lenders have come to us and said, look, we don't really necessarily have to have this, but we want to be insured that if there's a problem, that you'll protect us or take care of us. So not only does a title company protect your ownership interest, but they also protect the ownership interest the lender has because of the loan they're placing against your property. Hey there, Gerald. How are you this morning? Hi, Kelly. Good to see you guys. Thanks for tuning in. So the title insurance companies were pressured by the lenders that said, look, we don't really need this survey, but we want to be insured that if there is somebody who has an ownership interest, that it doesn't take away any of our rights or interest in that property to be able to recuperate our loan. So the title insurance company said, okay, cool. We will insure you, but we're not going to do a blanket protection. And if the owner wants protection against those kinds of things, then they have to have a survey done. So what happened is, a lot of owners were told at that point by their mortgage lender and by their realtor, because that's what they were told, that they didn't have to have a survey of the property. Now, a survey is where somebody comes out and makes a drawing of your property that you're purchasing or that you're refinancing, but typically you don't really have to have that done for a refinance because it's still your property. So, but a drawing of that property, where that property is, where any boundaries are, where any things that are sitting on the property, fences, sheds, garages, decks, anything that's above the ground, where those things sit within the property boundaries. Where are those things? And that's what the surveyor draws. Now, there's a couple different kinds of surveys, but the basic one that we see all the time is called a location survey. And the surveyor doesn't guarantee those points. They don't put stakes in the ground with a location survey. They're really drawing where that home and the improvements are on that property, located on that property. If you want to have stakes put in, it's usually a little more expensive, but that is very specific as to where those property lines are. So what was happening is people weren't getting surveys, so what they thought they were purchasing wasn't always necessarily what they were purchasing. So, 9 times out of 10, most of it was the same, but one of the things that comes up all the time is, as I introed in our Coffee with Connie this morning, what happens when you purchase a piece of property and the next thing you know, someone has their property staked that's next to you, and the stakes are where you thought your property was. So what do? Well, you didn't have a survey done. So unfortunately, because you didn't have a survey done, your title insurance policy is not going to protect that part of your ownership because they can't guarantee something they don't know. So unfortunately, the title insurance is not going to protect you. But what you need to do is at that point, have a survey done, because even if someone told you that you owned a piece of property up to a certain point and the previous owner owned it there and used it and cut the grass and had a fence and everything else, and now the person behind you has put stakes in and said, hey, wait a minute, you need to move your fence, or your property line, maybe there's not a fence there, they put the stakes within your property, you're going to need a professional to come out and determine where your property lines actually are, and it's not going to be a cheap chore. And unfortunately, if the person who is putting those stakes in is correct, then you may end up owning less than you thought that you owned, all because you didn't go through those steps to have that survey done. Let's talk about some things like fences. When your neighbor comes in and puts a fence up and they put it on your property and you thought your property was there, it may be that they had a survey done and the surveyor determined where their property lines were, so when the fence company came out, they put it exactly where they were supposed to. Or maybe they didn't have a survey done either, and they thought that their property line was at a certain point. You thought yours was at a certain point, and now you've got a little bit of a legal battle going on. So the reason I bring some of this up is because there's a lot of different things that can affect where your property lines are, who might have a right to travel through that property, and some of those things that could affect that ownership that only a survey will be able to tell you. For example, if a utility company has the ability to get on your property to work on utility lines, let's say the cable company comes out and they're digging up your yard. Why the heck are they digging up your yard? Well, the survey could show you those kind of things. There's a easement or a right that they have to travel down the side of your property to work on those work on those utility lines. And they have the right to do that. Now, it's your property, but they have the right to work on those lines. Somebody may have the right to travel through your property to get to their property. Maybe it's not a obvious road that you know about. That's called a right-of-way. And sometimes the survey would show that, because even though it doesn't physically look like it on your property, it's in the land records that someone has a right to do that. So maybe the property behind you hasn't been actively used, somebody recently sold it, and somebody's going to build a new house on it, and all of a sudden somebody starts driving right through the back of your yard. Well, that may be the right-of-way that they have to get there. So some of those things would show, all those things would show up on a survey, and that's exactly why you need to spend the money at closing to get that survey, because then your ownership interest is protected as well. Because if you have a survey done, then we also can ensure you that what's on that survey, you're protected, that there isn't anything else that could impede your ownership and your use of your property. So I talk about this because the survey thing comes up all the time. And people are sure, you drive up, you look at a piece of property, it's all fenced in, you're sure that that's exactly what you're buying, and the seller's pretty sure that's what they're selling, and there may be something that was in a previous ownership that the seller doesn't even know about. Hey there, Shelly, how are you this morning? Thanks for tuning in. Hey, Suzanne, thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you guys for checking in too. I really appreciate your time this morning. If you're checking in, please say hi. Let me know that you're on, because it does help me tailor the messages towards things that might help you. And the same is true if you are watching on a replay. I really appreciate that, and it helps me understand who's watching, so I can make sure that we're talking about things that help you understand maybe some processes a little better. So this morning we're talking about surveys, and the reason that we're talking about a survey is because it shows you by a professional exactly where the things that you think you're purchasing and the property that you think you're purchasing is located on the property that you really are purchasing. Sometimes things spur questions before closing that we need to get resolved, or that you may be okay with and understand, but now you understand exactly how those kinds of things work. So a survey is absolutely important for several reasons. You want to make sure your ownership is protected, and the only way to do that is to make sure that a survey is done. And also, you want to make sure that you understand exactly what you're purchasing. And without doing that, you take the time to get a home inspection. So a home inspector inspects the whole property and lets you know that what you're purchasing is what you think is there. There's no hidden things. There's nothing that you can't see as a layman or someone who doesn't necessarily understand some of those more intricate pieces. The same is true with a survey. You spend the time and the money to have a home inspection done, have somebody inspect that property and give you that drawing of what you're actually purchasing, because that way you can help ensure that what you're purchasing is going to be protected. Hopefully I helped you a little bit today. If you have questions, please message me, call me, reach out through Facebook, reach out through my email, Connie at footetitlegroup.com. Any of those things, I'd love to be able to help you and answer those questions for you, because if you have the question, then there may be somebody else that has that question too. So also hit the share button. That would help me a lot. The other thing I wanted to tell you guys is, as I've said many times before, my word for the year is execute. And execute to me means keep providing you with valuable information. And every month we put out a piece of literature that is either on our website, it's sent out by email, it's on all of our social media, and this month it's 4 tips for moving with kids, which is a great piece of information. You can find it on any of those spots, or you can message me and I can get you hooked up with signing up to get that piece of information. So I'd love to help you with any questions that you guys have. Our website's full of good information, FooteTitleGroup.com. So let me know if there's anything I can help you with. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I look forward to talking to you soon. And please feel free to reach out and let people know what we're talking about. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.